Are you tired of spending too much of your hard-earned money at the supermarket? Are you dreaming of farm fresh eggs, homegrown veggies, and homemade everything? Well, welcome to Ditch the Store, where we break free from supermarket dependence and take back control of our food and household essentials. I'm CJ, and I'm here to show you that life is too short for store-bought eggs. So let's get started. G'day everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ditch the Store. CJ here on her own again today. Andy Help hasn't been here for ages. He is still here. He's been working very, very hard. He's been doing some overtime shifts, and because of being a shift worker and doing some overtime shifts, he just has not been here when I've been recording. He'll probably be here over the next couple of episodes, I think, where this is the last of our at-home cleaning episode, and we are now moving on to something that I think will probably pique some people's interests after this episode. This is our last one. Next episode, we'll be talking about goats. And for those that have never had goats before, this can always be an interesting conversation because I think people have a certain view about goats and it's not always correct. I have been associated with goats for, well, I'm 53 and I remember having our first goat when I was about 7. So yeah, you do the math. Anyway, today we are not talking about goats, so you'll have to hold on to your enthusiasm and excitement for goat talk until next week. This week is our last one and we are talking about cleaning the tough stuff. Now, we've talked about cleaning. And I forgot to post a video. I have got a video. I will try and, by the time this comes out, hopefully I will have posted it. I have made up a couple of batches of cleaning stuff recently that I've tweaked a little bit. And oh my goodness, does it work? Wow, does it work? So there was a couple of things that I said with the window cleaning last week about putting, corn flour into the cleaning fluid. It works. I'll post a video. Anyway, if you're not following me at Mojo Homestead, go and follow me at Mojo Homestead. As we're tracking down, there's going to be a bit of a rebranding where the Mojo Homestead page may become Ditch the Store. And that's because the Ditch the Store branding seems to have resonated with more people. We've got a lot of people who are more interested in ditching the store than they are about homesteading per se directly, and you know, to me they go hand in hand. But for some people, you might be living in an urban environment and have no intention of moving to a rural area, and Ditch the Store might be something that's still really resonating with you, in which case, yeah, we want to make sure that we get the information out to as many people as possible. So we've talked about all the different kinds of cleaning, normal bench cleaning and sprays. We've talked about bathroom cleaning. We've talked about window cleaning. We've talked about why we are doing our own cleaning products at home versus buying the chemical ones at the shop. And this week we're talking about cleaning the tough stuff, because for those out there that are like me and live an animal-based diet or carnivore diet or ketovore diet, you will find that you are cooking on barbecues a lot. We cook a lot on our fireplace in cast iron pans. Now I have some cast iron pans, fry pans in particular, but I've got a big pot as well that are enamel lined cast iron. And I use them when I'm cooking more in the oven kind of thing. If I'm just cooking on the fire, I tend to cook in direct cast iron. And cast iron can be a little tricky for some people to clean, especially if it gets really grotty. If something is left in it and it really bakes on, or you leave it on the fireplace for a bit longer than you intended to and it gets a bit crusty, it can be a little bit hard to clean. But things like grill plates, barbecue plates, oven cleaning, which depending on the oven you've got, some ovens, if you're cooking a lot of meat in there, they'll get really, really gungy. So we're going to talk about that today. Now, I don't think it'll be a long episode today. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I want to get through, but looking at it, I don't think we'll be talking forever. And like I say, next week, if, once we get past this one, if you're keen to learn about goats, all different kinds of goats, I have meat goats, milk goats, and fibre goats. If you are keen to learn about those, that will be coming up. Now, I also have a bit of exciting news before I start talking about cleaning cast iron. that I've become involved with a online community called School. And if you have not heard of it before, I think it's Alex Hormozy. He formed this online community. And the idea behind it is that it's very, very low cost so that you can have members that don't necessarily have to pay anything to be a member. Now, there are paid memberships on there. I'm in a couple of non-paid memberships on there. That's how I learned about it. But I've also been in paid memberships on there. Dr. Anthony Chaffee does his carnivore diet program on School, and that is a paid program. But there's lots of non-paid programs on there too. And it's a really good little environment for learning things. So you learn everything from calligraphy to knitting to piano playing, guitar playing, languages, and also just be part of a community. There's men's groups on there, women's groups on there, all that kind of thing. So it's not a bad little group, and I'm just fiddling around with it at the moment, but hopefully by next week I may be able to give you a link to go to a page that I'm setting up as a community for you to go and be able to download stuff and get free stuff and see videos that I've got uploaded and things like that. So watch this space. Hopefully by next week I'll have some more details for you. Anyway, on with cleaning the tough stuff, which is, like I say, as a meat-based or animal-based diet, we use a lot of cast iron barbecue plates, grill plates, things like that to cook with. And cleaning them can be a real pain in the ass. I'm a little bit of a clean freak. I may have a little bit of OCD. And so the first couple of times that I used cast iron, which was a few years ago now, the first couple of times I used it, I probably cleaned it all the wrong ways. I'm sure I dunked it in hot, really, really soapy water and just didn't even think about, what I needed to do to it after that. I just wanted it clean. So there are a few things that you need to be mindful of with cast iron. And I guess the real issue with cleaning anything that's like a meat-based plate that you're cleaning off is that it can get really, really dirty, really greasy, and you end up with black everywhere. There's little flakes of black that come off and that seem to go everywhere. So everything you wipe down it with, you end up with crud all over you. If you try and wipe it down with paper towel, most paper towels have little fibrey bits that come off. So trying to clean a barbecue plate with paper towel can be a real nightmare as well. And sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and do it because it's gunky and it needs to be cleaned. But the real issue is allowing rust to get onto things that are cast. So our smoker, our barbecue, they both have grills that like racks that are cast iron. Plates that are cast iron. We've got a couple of cast iron pots, like I said, and then we've got the enamel pots as well. Now, my enamel cast iron pots, I am particularly careful with, and I read the riot act to everybody in the house. You can't use anything metal-based or scrubby or scoury-based in it because it will wreck the enamel. Now, I do clean them still at this point with gumption. I have tried bicarb soda and it definitely does work, but the gumption I feel like I don't have to put as much elbow grease into it to get it clean. And I don't know what it is that's in gumption. I'm assuming it's just a really well made up paste. It contains bicarb, so I'm assuming it's a well made up paste. But that's what I use for my enamel lined ones. Mind you, they don't get that gungy. For the other ones, you have to be really mindful of the rust issue because once rust gets into cast iron, it's really, really hard to get rid of. It's not impossible. You can get rid of it, but it's hard. But you don't want to be spraying chemicals over everything that you're eating off. We discussed this a couple of episodes ago. The idea of putting chemicals onto something that you're going to then eat off just seems a little odd to me. Just had a little sip of green tea. I'm currently trying to drink as much green tea as possible. Somebody gave me a hot tip that it gets rid of inflammation in knees and joints. So I'm giving it a try. Anyway, sorry about that. So we don't want to use chemicals because we're cooking food on those things and then eating them. And the idea of putting like really heavy duty chemicals onto stuff that you're then cooking your food on just seems a little bit off. So the main chemicals that are in things like oven sprays, which are, if anybody's used an oven spray, it's really caustic because you spray it in the oven and your eyes start watering and you feel like you're breathing in for any law enforcement out there, it feels like you're breathing in OC spray. For anybody that's been sprayed with capsicum spray, feels like you're breathing in capsicum spray. It's the active ingredient is sodium hydroxide, which is lye, which is the same stuff you use to make soap, which, I still make soap using lye, but it's very, very caustic. And I'm trying to break away from that cycle, and I'm looking now at making soaps out of tallow, animal fat. I think lard is pork fat, tallow is beef fat. I'm trying to work out how I can make all of our soaps out of more natural products rather than having to use lye. But lye has for years been used as a soap ingredient and also used as a cleaning product ingredient. But it can burn the skin, eyes. If you're anybody that's made soap before, you know that the number one thing everybody says when you're learning to make soap is gloves, glasses, and if you are sensitive to things, breathing apparatus. But you never make your soap in an enclosed environment. They always say to do it where you've got a good airflow of windows, or you're able to let it breeze through. Because lye is really, really caustic, and it could cause a lot of problems if you inhale it, particularly when it's going off, when it's actually fizzing. You don't want to be breathing it in at that point. Now, the problem is that the off-gassing can linger for a little while, especially in a closed oven. So if you're using a lye ingredient or sodium hydroxide with an active ingredient in your oven cleaner, excuse me, as soon as I always start to record, I always start yawning. I don't know what that is. If you're using sodium hydroxide based oven cleaner, the smell will linger for ages. And what I used to really annoy me was I'd clean out my oven with oven spray and normal oven chemicals, and the next 2 or 3 times you used your oven, you could still smell it afterwards. It was still like you hadn't quite got all of it out, and it was still burning off, like there was still a gas coming out of the oven. Now, degreasers and rust removers, if you have to, like if you've washed something, overly washed it with chemical, and then you have to go back and try and put more oil back into it, a lot of them are petroleum-based solvents. And the idea of eating off something that's been wiped down with petroleum-based does my head in. It's like eating Vaseline out of a jar. I don't think I really like that. But the real problem is, it's horrible for septics or grey water. So if you're off-grid like us and you've got, you're washing down things and it's going to go into either the soil via grey water or go into your septic, you're probably not going to want something that's petroleum-based going in there, because it's really not that good for the environment of the natural bacteria that lives in there. And acidic commercial rust removers, I've got a little note here, can strip protective coatings. And that's why I'm super, super careful about my enamel-lined cast iron. The enamel is a good quality enamel, and I don't want to wreck it, so I'm fairly cautious about what I will and won't use cleaning it. But generally, I just wipe it out with a sponge. I'll put hot water into the enamel, not while it's hot, unless you can put hot water into a hot enamel, but if it's really, really hot, you don't want to put cold water in, because it can damage the enamel that way. So I generally wait till it's cooled down a little bit, and then I'll pour hot water into my fry pans and leave them soak for a little while. And then when I wipe them out with a sponge, generally most of the stuff will come off the enamel anyway. But if you're using rust removers on cast or grills, it can strip any protective coatings that were on there, and it can also damage the actual cast metal. Now the cost factor, because it always comes down to a cost factor for me. I had a look, and you can get some pretty cheap oven cleaners. They might be cheap and nasty. I don't know whether they work. I haven't used an oven cleaner in a long time. But the specialty products cost anywhere between $5 and $15 a bottle, depending on what you are actually buying and what you're going to use it for. But believe it or not, the things that you can use to replace it with are all the things that I talk about. Now, I recently had to buy some more bicarb soda from Costco, and I didn't keep the receipt. I feel terrible. I normally keep my receipts and just double check them. $16.99, and it's a 3.2 kilo bag. Actually, I'm going to pause it and go grab it. Ducked over to the kitchen, and for anybody watching on YouTube, this is the one that I use, which is the Arm and Hammer pure baking soda, which is just bicarb soda, and I thought it was 3 kilos. Oh, I'm doing my weights this morning. It's 6.12 kilos, which for those that use pounds, it's 13 pounds. Ooh. And I think it cost me $16.99 for that. So again, I'll try and do the math and work it out. It was cheap. It was really cheap, considering I use it for just about all my cleaning products now. That to me, $16.99, for 6 kilos. I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'm using maybe a quarter of a cup for most of the things I use for cleaning. That's gonna, well, the other bag lasts me for a long time. It's the first time I had to buy it in ages. So it's again, cleaning your heavy duty stuff is going to come down to bicarb, vinegar, salt, believe it or not, salt, and lemon, as in a actual lemon that you buy from the grocery store, or if you're very blessed and have a lemon tree in your backyard, use one of your own lemons and make it even cheaper. And that's all you need to clean some of this heavier stuff. So my DIY recipe for oven cleaner, I'll go first with oven cleaner, is a bicarb and vinegar paste. It's really, really easy, and pretty much you only make up as much as what you think you're going to use. Like I say, a quarter of a cup probably. On my recipe, I've got half a cup of bicarb, enough water to make it into a spreadable paste, and you can put a couple of tablespoons of salt in there. It just, if the oven's really, really dirty, a couple of tablespoons of salt will just give it a little bit more abrasion, so it'll help lift some of the grease and crud that's in there. Now, the thing is, you can either go elbow grease and go hell for leather scrubbing it. I've got to stop doing that hand signal when I'm on video and recording. Or you can let time work in your favour. So if you're not in a hurry, or you know that it's going to take a little bit more to get it clean, I'd suggest going the overnight method. So you remove all the racks and coat the entire interior of your oven with the bicarb paste. Try to avoid the elements. It's not going to hurt them, but when it burns off afterwards, the next time when you first fire up your oven again, there'll be a smell attached. So it's easier to not have it. And then you don't have to wash the elements down too much. I don't think you're supposed to get water all over them. I don't think it's good for them in that respect. But so try and avoid the elements, but all around the interior of the oven, put the paste on. So you want it to be a thick paste, but not super thick on the walls, just a good layer of it. Leave it overnight. The next day, get a small spray bottle, and I did get some more spray bottles. One that I prepared earlier, sorry. That's one of the spray bottles that I use. They're from Bunnings, our local hardware store, and I just write my measurements up the side of what I want to put on them. So I just use a Sharpie marker that doesn't come off and just write down exactly where I want to fill it to. It's got a really good trigger nozzle on it because it doesn't break easily. And I think I paid $10 for a pack of 3 that are 3 different colours. So they're good, handy ones to have. So you just put some vinegar in a spray bottle like that, and the next morning spray the vinegar all over the bicarb paste, which will be dry by the time you look at it the next day. Spray the vinegar all over it. You will see it fizz. And anybody that's mixed bicarb and vinegar knows that that's a reaction that happens. It'll fizz up. Once it's fizzed up and it's done all its fizzy stuff, then you can just get a cloth, just a Chuck's cloth, and wipe it out on the inside. And rinse down any residual bicarb paste that's on there, because if you don't rinse it down, it will burn off the next time you light your oven. Now, if there's any spots in there that didn't come clean, you can repeat the process. If it's a really gungy oven, you can do it 2 or 3 times without a problem. But you can also get some bicarb and just with a bit of elbow grease, give it a rub in the spot that it's really, really baked on. You just want to try and lift it. Once you lift it and then you've got bicarb there and you put vinegar on, generally the vinegar reaction with the bicarb will help lift any grease or crud off the inside of the oven wall. And that's all I use for insides of ovens. Now, for oven glass at the front, you can absolutely do that also. You don't want to be spraying glass cleaner on the inside of your oven. Leave that for the outside of the oven to make it look nice and shiny and new. But on the inside, to get the grease off, the bicarb and vinegar is absolutely the way to go. I only have a small toaster oven that we use here because we've got the wood fire. And certainly cleaning the door of that, it can get really gungy because it's the only oven we have. So anything gets cooked in there. But cleaning it off with bicarb and vinegar has absolutely worked every time where I've got it crystal clear. Now, next on the list is barbecue plate degreaser. So again, same kind of ingredients. It's really not that hard. With barbecue plates, they can get really, really gungy, and the handy helper's a shocker for it because he will cook things on it 2, 3, 4 times, and he just we try not to use seed oils on our cooking plates. We do have to use them on our cast iron plates to reseason them, and I'll explain reseasoning in a sec. But we don't cook our food in seed oils. We only have seed oils here literally for doing things like making soap and cleaning cast iron and things like that. So to clean a plate that is gunged up, washing soda that we used when we were talking about laundry powder, when we were making laundry powder earlier in this series. So half a cup of bicarb, half a cup of washing soda. Now, this is going to get it clean. Washing soda, I would recommend if you have sensitive hands, don't do this without gloves on. I joke and say I don't mind doing it without gloves on because if my hands have got a bit calloused or hard or dirty, like the handy helpers when he's working on cars, he gets quite dirty. Washing soda will strip the layer of skin off and your hands will be suddenly very clean. But I would recommend using gloves. And boiling water. That's all you need, literally. So you make sure it's a cooled plate. Don't do this straight after cooking. Cooled plate. And sprinkle the combination of the bicarb and the washing soda. Sprinkle the powder all over the top of it. Now, if you can put it in a tub, like not a bathtub because you'll scratch your bathtub, but if you've got a big plastic bucket that you can use or a plastic tray or anything like that that will fit the plates in, put the plates in there first. Sprinkle the powder all over it while it's in the tub. Then pour boiling water, boiling, not hot, boiling water over the entire surface of the plate. Let it soak for 15 to 20 minutes. You can let it soak for a bit longer, not forever because it will rust. Let it soak for half an hour if it's really, really vile, and then get a scrubbing brush. Now, what we recommend is a barbecue brush, like the kinds that you get that are specifically for barbecues, or a non-scratch pad. And just a normal non-scratch pad that you would use for cleaning, other things in your kitchen. And give it a good scrub. If you need to do it a second time, do it a second time. If it's really gungy and it hasn't been cleaned properly in forever, then do it a second time. But you'll find that gets most of the gunk off. Now, once you've done that, this is where your seed oils come in. This is the only time I recommend you get seed oils and use them for anything. Vegetable oil, just cheap ass vegetable oil. At the moment, I don't know what it is with oil at the moment. I buy olive oil still to use for things at home, like making soap. And we tried to buy olive oil the other day and the handy helper and I nearly fell off the perch. It was like $60 for 3 litres here in Australia of olive oil. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, when did the price? I don't buy it very often. We use butter for all our cooking and even like for cooking and also in our pans and on our hot plates, we use butter before we cook our food on them. So I haven't bought vegetable oil or olive oil in a very, very long time, but the price has definitely gone up. So we bought olive oil because we do use it for some things at home. And I said, I definitely won't be using that for reseasoning any of the cast iron stuff, not at that price. Vegetable oil you can get super cheap. I mean, I joke and say vegetable oil's, one ingredient away from engine oil, and that's pretty much what it is. But it's great for seasoning cast iron. So once you've cleaned your barbecue plate, then what you want to do is rub it with oil. Now, you can literally just pour it over it, but the problem is that you're going to have too much on there, and when you try and heat it to dry it out, you'll end up with pools of oil everywhere. So it's easier sometimes to get a cloth or even paper towel if you don't want to make a mess everywhere, and pour some oil onto that and then just wipe it over the surface. Now, the only thing with paper towel, when you do it, you'll get little fibres of paper. If that's not going to bother you, great, don't worry about it. Otherwise, you could use a Chuck's towel, like a Chuck's wipe. You're probably not going to be able to get the oil out of it afterwards unless you want to boil it. So you can use it and then throw it out. I hate to say that because I love reusing my Chuck's cloths. We use them for the milking goats and I reuse them and wash them out all the time. But you want to put the oil over it, and the reason you want to put the oil over is because otherwise it will rust, and rust is the enemy of cast. So you really don't want it rusty. It's going to mean that your barbecue plate is season. So once you put the oil on, if you've got too much oil on, fire up the barbecue, let it burn off. You want it to get to the point where there's smoke coming off it without food on it, and then turn it off, let it cool, and the plate should be fine. There should be no rust coming up, and it should be nice and clean and re-seasoned and ready to go for your very next juice. Now, I know that goes in the face of what I've said about, not using seed oil for cooking on, but if you're then putting butter on top of that to cook your food on, it's the lesser of two evils to me. So, rust remover for when you haven't done the right thing and you haven't re-seasoned your stuff, and I am guilty of it. I have had cast iron pots that I've gone to get out to use again and gone, oh, fuck, I've left it, and I obviously left it damp or not completely dried off. I hadn't re-seasoned it, and I'd cleaned it too harshly. All these things can contribute. So, to get rust off plates, you need lemon and salt. Coarse salt will do, any salt. Use your cheaper salt, doesn't matter. I buy my big buckets of salt from Costco. Just use whatever salt you've got on hand. It needs to have the grain in order to have the abrasion. And lemon juice. Now, there's a couple of ones that I've seen. One is people squeezing the lemon juice onto the salt and making a paste that way in order to clean it. So cover the rusted area with salt, sprinkle lemon juice onto it, and then rub it in as a paste. Now, you can do that with your fingers. It's only salt and lemon juice. It's not going to hurt you. It's not toxic. It probably will be a bit abrasive. So like I say, with the bicarb and the washing soda, if you want to take a layer of skin off because your hands are particularly dirty or grainy, that's a great way to do it. Otherwise, if you've got sensitive skin and you don't think you want that, I would suggest wearing gloves. But I've also seen people do it, and I've seen them do it with chopping blocks as well, where they get the half lemon and pour salt over the half of the lemon and then flip it and rub the lemon while kind of pushing it and squeezing some of the juice out, and the salt into the surface, across the surface. Now, once you have let it sit for 2 to 3 hours like that, you can scrub it with steel wool or a steel brush. Rinse it and dry it. Now, once it's completely rinsed and dried, that's when you want to re-season it, right then, before you let it sit any longer, because the rust will come back. So always make sure it's completely dry, then re-season it. Once it's seasoned, just leave it sit until its next use, and it should be fine. Don't hold me to it, because at the end of the day, I'm sure I've had my first hater on YouTube of late. So he wanted to complain about everything I said, that I have no science knowledge. I'm like, well, I'm not a scientist, so that would make sense. Anyway, he was very adamant that I should not be talking about cleaning products because I don't know anything about cleaning products. I'm like, oh, only what I do myself at home. But anyway, so don't hold me to it. That's never ever going to rust again. If it's not treated properly, it will rust. Cast iron will rust. So dry it, re-season it, and then try and keep it covered so that it doesn't get gunky and you don't have to wash it again. Now, cast iron cookware. I've got a whole section of notes written just for the cast iron stuff because it is a bit different. And if you're not used to cast iron, it can be a little tricky to kind of get through it. Sorry, a little sip of green tea before I start coughing again. So soap and harsh scrubbing will strip seasoning. Now, sometimes you have to use soap and a good scrub to get it clean. But having that seasoning layer on cast iron will stop it from sticking generally. It will stop the cooking process from food sticking to the cast iron. But if you have to clean it like that, you'll end up with rust. And rust is a no-no for cast iron. A, because you can't cook in it because you don't want to eat rust. But also it will damage the surface of the cast iron. So you really don't want rust sitting there for any longer than you have to. As soon as you notice it's rusty, it's time to give it a wash, the way that I said, with the lemon and salt, scrub it clean and re-season it. But soaking it in water will also cause rust and cause issues with cast iron. So, and this is what I didn't know. So I used to get cast iron stuff and I'd just throw it in the sink and wash it and leave it to soak to try and get the food off, any food that was stuck on, not realizing I was actually doing more damage than good. So for everyday cleaning for cast iron, these are the hot tips. Wipe out the crumbs with some paper towel. Now, like I say, you'll end up with a little bit of fibre of paper towel left behind. You can rinse that off, wipe it out with a wet cloth like a Chucks or something like that. For stuck bits, sprinkle salt and give it a little bit of a scrub with a damp cloth, or with a bit of lemon, and give it a scrub, and that stuck food should come off. Once it's dry completely, and you can do this by putting it on a stove top and turning the heat on to get it completely dry, that's when you want to rub your thin layer of cooking oil. Now, it can just be the cheap-ass vegetable oil. You don't need to spend $60 on 3 litres of olive oil in order to reseason your cast. Cheap-ass vegetable oil. I mean, that's what it is. It's a mechanical degreaser, basically. Rub it all over, and then you can heat it again. And if it's, and I've got a tip down here, and I just want to make sure I get it right. So, where am I here? You can do it 2 to 3 times, and that's what I wanted to make sure, because when I've done it in the past, I've not done it enough and the rust has come back. So if you've had a particularly rusty pan or a particularly dirty pan that you've had to scrub really hard with soap, what you want to do is put the layer of vegetable oil on, just a thin layer. It doesn't have to be super, super heavy layer, but the entire surface, inside, outside, handle, everything. Place it upside down, this is what I've got written, on a preheated oven, 200 degrees Celsius or 400 Fahrenheit for my overseas friends, with a tray underneath to catch the drips. Because what you want to do is you want to bake the oil into it, but any excess oil you want to drip off it. You don't want it to be pooling in there. It's not great when it pools like that. Bake it. This is for one that's really damaged. Bake it for an hour and then let it cool in the oven. Repeat those steps 2 to 3 times, and you should be doing that when you first use cast iron. If you've never had cast iron before and you've got yourself a cast iron pan, that is a method of seasoning it to get it started so that you don't have issues down the track. But 2 to 3 times will give you a nice good layer of seasoning. It bonds the oil to the iron, and you'll notice that it looks really smooth and black and shiny, whereas cast iron that hasn't been seasoned properly or hasn't been seasoned recently will look very dry and slightly rust coloured and very porous, so the food will stick to it more. So you really want that seasoning layer on there to stop the food sticking. It kind of makes a non-stick surface for it. So remember to use the lemon juice and salt paste if you've got really stuck on ones. Now, the big no-nos for anything cast is never put it in a dishwasher. That works for us. We don't have the dishwasher because we're off grid and it just doesn't pay. Never store it damp. So it's really important that if you've washed out, and this is where I have been at fault before, where I've washed out my cast iron pots that I use on top of the fire, and they have lids, heavy cast iron lids, and I have not completely dried it before I put the lid back on. And so you end up with rust inside because there's moisture in there. Avoid acidic foods. I cook tomato stews in there and it's never a problem. So yeah, but it says to avoid them until it's well seasoned. That's the guidelines for cast iron. Once it's well seasoned, you should be able to cook literally anything in there without it causing a problem. So and with your oils for seasoning, if you're trying to, just say you've got heaps of oil in the house and you're trying to use up seed oils because you don't cook with them anymore, you can use flaxseed, grapeseed, or vegetable oil, olive oil, any kind of oil that you've got, you can use. Like I said, because I'm a tight ass, I'd only be using the cheapo vegetable oil. Flaxseed and grapeseed oil aren't that cheap, so I wouldn't be using them. I would just be using the very basic veggie oil. Now, if you don't have an oven, you can do it on a stovetop, and there's a few tweaks. So I don't have a massive oven, like I can't fit my cast iron pots in there because they normally sit on the fireplace. So I had to work out ways of doing it where I'm not putting it into an oven upside down with a drip tray underneath, because I just don't have an oven that's big enough to fit them. So this is what I found doing a bit of research. You clean the pan, as we've said before, with the salt and lemon if you have to, it's really gungy. Heat the pan on the stovetop. So on a gas burner, heat the pan up, medium-high heat, but you want it hot. Then using tongs, dip a little bit of paper towel into some oil, like vegetable oil, canola oil, grapeseed, whatever you call it, and rub a very thin layer around the entire surface of the pan. Then keep heating the pan until the pan starts to smoke. Then turn off the heat. Using a clean paper towel, not the one you dipped in the oil, wipe any excess oil off the pan. If there are any spots that are left unseasoned, and you can see them, they'll look dry, they won't look that shiny black, nice cast iron look. Or if they're sticky because there's too much oil there, then either put a little bit more oil in those spots or use a bit of paper towel to soak up any where there was excess. Now, the best way to do that method is to do it 2 or 3 times again. You want to build up layers because building up layers, oiling it, is going to make the surface do what it's supposed to do, which is be a non-stick surface that cooks things. So by the time you finish, the pan should look smooth, dark and glossy. If it doesn't look like that, then you probably need to keep going and do some more. Now, once you've done your last layer, you have to let the pan cool completely and dry completely. And when I say dry completely, it will still look a little bit oily. It's not going to look completely dry, but what I mean is you're not dipping your fingers into oil. So if you touch it, there might be a little bit of oil on the tips of your fingers, but it's not pools of oil. And then once that's done, then you want to store it in a very dry place. No moisture, because moisture will cause rust, and we're trying to get away from that. So do all that, and your cast iron should be absolutely amazing. So just going over what we've said, the main thing is with that heavy duty kind of cleaning is to let the bicarb paste do the job for you, and the soaking do the job for you. You don't want to have to scrub if you don't have to. If you've got the time, if you don't have the time, you might have to scrub, but if you've got the time, let them soak, let the paste dry completely, let it do its job and lift up the grease and the gunk. Non-scratch pads for coated metal, like enamel coated cast iron. Steel wool only for bare metal or cast iron reconditioning. So only when you're getting rid of the rust. Don't use it normally. Scrubbing brushes for the barbecue grates, and go and have a look at what they've got in the shops. It's probably worth buying a good scrubbing brush if you're barbecuing all the time. It just makes it so much easier to clean. Handy Helper and I have used cheapo ones before, and we've ended up going and buying a good one because it was just too much effort. And having one good one that lasts a while is much easier down the track. And obviously, as I've said a couple of times, if you have sensitive skin and you're using bicarb soda mixers and washing soda mixers and things like that, put gloves on. I don't. The kids joke, I can stick my hands under boiling water, and I reckon I've lost all the feeling in my fingertips anyway, which is probably from using chemical cleaners for years. But I also say, because I'm milking all the time, my hands are pretty tough because they're in and out of cold water, in and out of hot water, in and out of soaps all the time. So my hands are pretty tough now. But if you don't have tough hands, don't ruin them like I have and have no feeling left in them. Wear gloves. Don't cause yourself an injury. Don't cause yourself any kind of reason to take skin off or lose your fingerprints, or maybe you want to lose your fingerprints. Maybe that's the whole idea. But definitely try using gloves if you are at all concerned about your skin. Anyway, that is it for this week. Like I said, that's the end of our cleaning project. The last 9, I think, episodes have all been cleaning stuff. We've got through all that cleaning stuff. Anything that you're looking for, any of the recipes that I mentioned that you can't remember, you can go to www.mojohomestead. My God, I'm off the fairies today. mojohomestead.net, and go to the blog, and you'll be able to see all of the blog posts there about the cleaning stuff I've done. I think all of them are on there now. So go and have a look there, and you'll be able to find in whichever one. They're all named. I named my blogs after the podcast episode to make it easy for people to find, but you'll find any DIY recipes in there. So go and have a look there if in doubt. Like I say, hopefully soon I will have a new community page coming up with that school app. So then I'll be able to post recipes there and be nice and easy for you to go and find them. And otherwise, go and get your cast iron all cleaned up and make it look beautiful. If you do that and you post any photos to social media, link me in, because I absolutely love seeing them. And I can't wait to talk next week about goats and Excitement Plus. So I'm recording this. This is for the episode for the 28th of August. If my calendar is correct, by about the 10th of September, we should have some baby goats. And I know how much everybody loves seeing photos of the baby goats and videos of our crazy baby goats, because they are crazy when they're babies. So definitely, if you are not following us at Mojo Homestead, go on any of the social platforms. I am on all of them: TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Go and have a look, and make sure you're following us at Mojo Homestead, so that when we do start posting photos of baby goats, you'll be able to see them straight away. Anyway, that's it for me for now. Have an absolutely awesome week, and I will talk to you all again next week. Bye for now. Well, that's it for today's episode of Ditch the Store. If you're loving the journey to self-sufficiency, be sure to subscribe. You can also leave a review for us, or share this episode with a friend who's ready to break up with their supermarket. If you've got questions or success stories, we'd love to hear about them on the socials. You can also find me at www.mojohomestead.net. Until next time, keep raising, growing and making. And remember, life's too short for store-bought eggs.